Counting down to a new school year, changes to federal education funding, and a potential cell phone ban in schools. Massachusetts top educator is here to talk about it all. It's time to go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
So don't shoot the messenger, but the new school year is just more than a week or so away from many of you. Hello and welcome to On the Record this morning. I'm Ed Harding.
And I'm Charmin Sacchetti. It is the perfect time to talk with Massachusetts Secretary of Education Patrick Tutwiler. He oversees early education, K through 12 and higher education here in the state. Secretary Tutwiler previously served as superintendent of the Lynn Public Schools and a headmaster at Boston Public Schools. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me
Great
back.
to see you. Great to see you. Great
way
to end the summer. Thank you. All right. Yes. So let's start with the battle between the White House and America's oldest university. Widespread reports say that Harvard and the Trump administration are close to a deal, and it would mean that Harvard would pay $500 million to regain access to federal funding and to end investigations. The details are still being worked out. It's a sizable deal. So what is your reaction to that?
My reaction first is that I don't have the secret handshake on how this deal is evolving. But what I would say is let's reframe our thinking a bit. I know that Harvard is perhaps the president's big proverbial big fish here, but this is really about the higher education sector. The president has been incredibly punitive toward that sector, has really tried to cut it at its knees, and that is really problematic and concerning really for all of us. We think about the NIH funding that they're planning to either reduce or cancel completely. That's concerning when we think about what the higher ed sector does in terms of enhancing and improving our lives, finding cures for illnesses. This has to stop.
Is Harvard right to try to find an agreement?
I think the President Garber, as is the case for many university presidents, is in an unenviable position of trying to protect the viability of the institution while also maintaining and embracing espoused values. So he's got to fight it, and they have, but he also has to find a path.
But isn't Harvard the big enough gorilla to say, yeah, no, forget it, no, we're moving on?
No, right? Again, Harvard is not the first. It won't be the last. That's why I said this is a higher ed sector challenge.
The question is also, will the pressure stop even if an agreement is reached?
Well, I would be guessing here, but it looks like from the president, probably not. And so one would be wise to consider the history of how the president has behaved and act accordingly. And I would say shift more toward embracing your values and fight the fight.
Earlier this summer, the Department of Education withheld more than $100 million, the federal department, from Massachusetts schools after it had been already appropriated by Congress. You've since had that money come in, but the question is there more federal funding now potentially in jeopardy under this administration?
That's a good question. I mean, again, it would invite me to guess, and I don't know. But what I would say is
nothing's currently being withheld right now?
Nothing is currently being withheld. That money has been released, thankfully, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed has turned it around and dispersed it to districts and organizations, which is important. School year is coming, as you mentioned. But I would say again, and one person described this in the same fashion that Lucy used to remove the football from Charlie Brown as he attempted to kick it. That's what this sector feels like. The uncertainty, the chaos, this is creating a lot of anxiety in the K-12 sector. My phone blew up in early July when that announcement came that those funds were being withheld because districts' budgets are already settled in June. This, again, has to stop.
Yeah, though there is the millionaire's tax, and it's brought in billions of dollars to Massachusetts. Is that enough? Is that bringing in enough to cover any potential federal funding cuts?
So I get asked this question a lot. In fact, each time the federal government seeks to withhold or threatens to withhold federal funding, and I would say, the same thing that I've consistently said, which is we receive about $2 billion annually from the federal government for education in Massachusetts. You're not going to find that in a seat cushion anywhere in Massachusetts. And each sort of passing month, there's another threat of another cut. So I don't know that that's the solution. I would much rather fight the fight, which is why I appreciate A.G. Campbell so much and pushing back on these overreaches by the president.
The governor has signed a bill into law that seeks to protect students' right to education regardless of their immigration status. It adds the words immigration or citizenship status and also disability to a state law that prevents discrimination against children in public schools. And it comes as the president continues with mass deportation efforts. So what's the goal here?
The goal here is first to espouse a core value, which is every student deserves a high quality education here. And we have a commitment to ensuring that students who are historically marginalized or who have challenging circumstances also get that high quality education. Fundamentally, what this law does is codify in state law what was currently exists in federal law that protects the rights of immigrant students, protects the rights of students with disabilities. This is a firm statement about what we believe here in Massachusetts, and I feel thrilled and honored that the governor signed that into law.
All right, the state Senate has passed a bill, and I know you've heard a lot about this, to ban cell phones in classrooms, bell to bell. That's all day long. Now, each district would have to come up with their own policies by the 2026-2027 school year. It is not law yet, but we know that the governor does support this idea. I want to ask you, what is your message to parents who do say they want a way to get in touch with their kids and they think this is a bad idea?
I understand that. I've had 3 kids go through the public schools. I've got one who's a rising sophomore who has asked me consistently, Dad, do you have anything to do with this cell phone ban? Because don't do it. But what I would say is we all went to school and we all had scenarios where parents needed to contact us at school, whether it was to pick up because there was an issue, and there was never a problem. I would also ask them respectfully to embrace what the research tells us about how big a detriment having access to the phone during the school day is for learning, for engagement. And so I appreciate that that bill has sort of moved along through the Senate. I also embrace what the research says about eliminating cell phones during the school day.
How big of a problem is it during the school day? What are you hearing from people in the classroom?
I hear a lot.
Yeah.
I hear a lot. And frankly, I can provide for you an example of a before and after. I went to Brockton High School before they implemented their cell phone ban, and I saw one sort of circumstances. I went back after the ban was in place, whole different place, whole different experience. And I had a junior come up to me and I'm like, hey, tell me about this whole cell phone thing. Do you miss having access to your phone during the day? She's like, actually, it's been so much better. I connect more with my friends. I feel like I'm more engaged and able to concentrate in class. And the benefit extends beyond the school day. I'm not as connected and wed to my phone after school. So these are real benefits, and districts have the opportunity, despite the legislation, to move in that direction, and a number are.
Anti-Semitic harassment, vandalism, and assaults have been on the rise here in Massachusetts. Now, a special state commission on anti-Semitism has agreed to adopt new recommendations to keep these kinds of incidents from happening in schools. The commission found many Jewish students are afraid to disclose their faith because of bullying, and it's also found that schools and teachers aren't clear on how to respond to the incident. So what is your reaction, and what do these recommendations look like in practice, in the real world?
So what I would say is we believe deeply, I believe deeply, Governor Healy believes deeply that every student deserves to feel safe and included in their school environment. And we are very much aligned with the intent of this commission's recommendations, which is to make that real. Last year, we partnered with A.G. Campbell to develop a set, update a set of guidance for school districts around anti-bias and hate and discrimination in schools. That's been pushed out substantively. This, I feel like is the next iteration in that push. But again, it's about creating a safe and inclusive environment. And we look forward to the next steps. Those recommendations are the preliminary recommendations. The full report is forthcoming.
The future of MCAS is up next after the break.